Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to route out this skull and the bones, the crossbones there. When it's all routed out nicely, we're basically going to remove all the colours section, leaving the nice black framework all the way around. And then we'll cut it out on a scroll saw, give it a nice bit of sanding down, and then we'll see what it looks like as regards to either painting it all or popping in a little bit of coloured resin just to finish it off nicely. Now it measures in roughly about 14 inches by 13 inches. It's on recycled pine. This was left over from a previous project. This probably started life as a table. For those that's just starting out, find yourselves some free items, any tables, wardrobes that anybody's throwing out. Don't be ashamed to grab hold of them. They're ideal if you're just starting and you don't want to go out and spend money on fancy woods that basically you could destroy if you don't get your act together. So for me, as always, I printed off my little template there and I'm going to transfer it onto the wood. I literally use carbon paper or graphite paper. You simply pop that in there and draw around it all with a pen, and that will transfer the image nicely onto our bit of wood there, as you can see. Shading the areas that you want to remove or you're going to keep. You will go away, come back and start removing the areas around the mouth, let's say. Whereas we want the mouth leaving, we want to remove either side. So shading the areas that you want to remove. These bluer ones, they will be cut out on a scroll saw. And that blue one there, and that one blue one there, they will all be cut out on a scroll saw later. But for now, we'll focus on the routing side of things. So we've got our lovely image all transferred there onto our recycled pine. As always for me, I like to use CNC bits, and I've just had a lovely delivery. These are all brand new. Literally got these yesterday. 10 degrees, 15s, 20s and 30s. That is basically the angle of the cut. I can just get in, he says. The angle of the cut on the end. That's a 30, is that one? I can tell that straight away. And you can tell literally if it just comes in, there we go. Just that angle of the cut. You compare that with a 10. Just get your 10 quickly. One of these that's probably just popped out. So if I put a 10 degree next to a 30, just quickly, you can see the difference there in those angles. And that is basically just the angle of the cut. I'm going to go with a 20 today, which is that one there. And that's just slightly again. There's not a lot in it, but it's just enough to alter the angle of the cut. Remember, we're going to pop resin in this. If we're going to pop resin in, shall I say. The angle of the actual side walls of the routing out. Really not that important. So 20 today. So to actually fit a 1/4 inch router, you will need an adapter reducer collet, and it's basically just a little tube like that. A couple of slits in. Your CNC bit slots in there. 3.175mm slots into your 6.35mm adapter. That will now fit your router, no problem whatsoever. And once we've done all the lines, remember we want to go inset on this one, basically inside the lines. So all the shaded area, we will route up to the line there and up to the line. I never route on the line itself, because the line for the depth, by the time you've got around something small like this on the line and that on the line, you've narrowed that section there. So always up to the line, up to the line. If we're removing all the background, we'd obviously go up to the line on this side. So very rarely do you actually route out on the line itself. Now for most of my projects I work on 3mm, which is basically the thickness of your CNC bit. 3.175 if you want to be precise. And that's the exactly same. I made myself a little piece of wood like this. 3 meters, 4 meters. And I know that fits in there, and that is literally the same height. So if I was to go away and do another project, we can come back and set it to that depth, and we know we've got the same all the way around. You can also purchase depth gauges on eBay or Amazon. So once we've done all our lines with the CNC bit, we'll remove that. There's a lovely new box again. I've literally just opened this one up. Look at those beautiful things in there. And we'll find one. It's quite large as this one, so we get a good size one. And we'll literally just pop that into the same adapter collet. We can set it to our same depth, like so. Or literally, I'll have certain bits of this just removed, so we can set it to the same depth and remove all the shaded out areas, such as the at and stuff, and maybe inside the bones. It's quite large, so we'll see how good it's coming out. If it's a little bit slow, we'll pop on one of these nice straight flush bits. I think the smallest one we'll do today, and that will whip it out a lot quicker. However, they are a little bit more aggressive, so definitely around the mouth area you wouldn't come in with this. That little piece sticking up there, it will pop that off, no problem. So we'll focus on the CNC bits and end milling bits for now. Right, let's set it all up in the router and we'll start routing this one out. Okay, we've gone all the way around with those CNC bits. It's a little bit powdery is this wood today, and that's just the nature of the wood. It's free wood at the end of the day, so we can't complain too much about it. But once you've gone around with our little flexi cable, just find it here quickly for you. Once you've gone around with this and a little engraving bit, we'll give it a nice tidying up. So we've got no concerns there. So you can see from like that, should I say, we've gone all the way around. We've got the bits that we need to do. So we've no need to worry about the lines at all now. They're all nicely done. So all you've got to do is start removing all the shaded areas. Remember, the blue sections, we're actually going to cut those out with a saw, a scroll saw. So it's just a case of removing the CNC bit. You'll get a lot of projects out of that. They're eBay or Amazon for them. I will put links into all the little bits I use in the description. Remember, there's certainly better bits out there, but they come with a better price tag as well. So end milling bits next. These are fantastic for clearing out with, because they have the nice rough side plus a bottom. So they will tidy up the sides for you, plus smooth the bottom of the wood, hopefully at the same time. Now they do come with this little barrier on now. Don't be concerned if you can't find them with that barrier on. They're basically exactly the same with or without. We just push it up to that. We'll set it to our same depth. If you notice there, I've removed a couple of sections. So we can set it to that depth, or obviously use our little bit of wood again. So 3mm, remember. So we'll pop this in now, basically remove all the shaded sections. If it is going a little bit slow, we might pop on one of them straight bits. But personally myself, I think it'll come out easy just for that little end milling bit. Right, we made it round with those end milling bits, no problem whatsoever. For what you pay for those, they really do work nice. I'm quite happy with those. Certainly got no issues. And it's surprising how nice to cut when you have some nice new ones like that. So you can more or less just see from that, that's all nicely done. And that's fairly smooth, is that? We're going to go over it with sandpaper and the Dremel, remember, with some engraving bits, just to generally tidy it up and get inside all these little bits here that we probably couldn't get in with the end milling bits without putting a smaller one on. But just before that, I want to cut it all out first on this one on a scroll saw. Remember, we've got all that inner section to remove, that section there, and there's a little strip there. Now on the original template, that was a little bit shorter there, and it was shorter there. So you can modify things to suit you. So I just slightly extended the rim of the hat there, just so it makes contact with the smoke on the cigarette. Just some more, keeps it in one piece. If you imagine if that had been shorter and you just had that smoke line up there from the cigarette, it's going to be a little bit delicate, even though it's a good inch thick as this. So the chances of it breaking are limited, but to be safe, I just made sure there's a point of contact there. Just keep it one piece, and the same again over there. And you also notice with knots on your wood, twist your template round, we just to say miss that nice big one there. And there was one in there which we made sure went into the rim. Remember, we're going to colour all that in with resin, and same as that one there. So take a couple of minutes to look at your wood and just see how you can turn things around and modify things just to make the end project a little bit more better and secure. Don't go rushing into projects and then think, if I only took my time, it wouldn't end up with certain things that shouldn't be there. Okay, moving on, scroll saw time. Now quickly, for those that haven't done a scroll saw, I'll just show you my little tatty thing over here. That's my little scroll saw in the corner. Cheap second-hand Draper. I've never seen one like it. I don't know if they even make them anymore. But that's basically a scroll saw over there. And the blade will fit in there, which you will see in a minute when we start cutting. And if I just come back here again quickly, just going to show you the three basic blades that they are. Now on your more cheaper saws, you get what are called pin blades. They obviously come with a nice pin at both ends, obviously, and they will just clip into your saw. When you use a scroll saw, you want the blade facing towards you, and you want it to be smooth on the way down. Get it the right way around. Smooth on the way down, and it wants to feel rough on the way up. That way you know you got your blade in the right way. And this one would work fine on this project because there's nothing too great detail. Excuse me. Once we've drilled a pilot hole into there, you probably even fit it into there. But if you're doing really, really detailed work, they do come out with a pinless blade. You also get no pins on there at all. And they come with a fancy clamp on your more expensive swords, should I say. Same again, teeth facing towards you, smooth on the way down, rough on the way up. And they're perfect for getting into really tight areas. Like in there, you could drill a little pilot hole, you feed your blade through, cut that section out. Whereas with a pin blade, you might just struggle to get in there, or even tighter areas still. So pinless blade, they're very popular with more the expert cutters, as I would say. Me personally, I like to use a spiral blade. You will certainly have a love or hate relationship with these. And as you can see there, the teeth are spiraled the full length of the blade. Still want it in the right way, so it still wants to be smooth on the way down and rough on the way up. But obviously it doesn't matter which direction you put it in. You can't have the teeth towards you, because the teeth are towards you, to the back, left, right and all over, because they're basically spiraled. These are fantastic for bigger projects, because you can cut all the way around this without moving that wood. To be honest, you could eat that wood like that and just feed it like so. Whereas on the other two blades, pinless and pinned, you'd have to feed the wood into that, then turn the complete wood, and then turn the complete wood, feed that, and then turn it again. And it's a lot of turning and twisting. There's some phenomenal people out there that can do it. It's just not for me. So my personal choice is a spiral blade. Now with my little Draper saw, it doesn't take pinless blades. So I use two little adapters like that, and they basically just fasten to your top of your blade and the bottom, and when you could put it on your saw, you just clip it on there and clip it on the top. It's a bit fiddly, it's a bit time consuming if you're doing a big project, but something like this, once we get going, we'll cut through that no problem. Okay, we'll pop that on our saw now and start cutting this one out. Right, we've gone all the way round with our Pegasus number 5 spiral blade. The only thing you will find with those spiral blades is they're quite dusty. Should I say, the actual wood itself gets quite compacted inside. But regards to the cutting wise and stuff, I have no issues. Now, I've not took this out of here yet. This is the first time, so you will be able to see the actual dust that gets involved. Just comes out nice like so, he says, hopefully. There we go. And that's your cutout all done. Now if I can just turn it on the sides to show you. People complain about the cuts on these spirals. I've certainly got no issues with that. But you can just see there how the dust has compacted in. And a quick blow off with an air compressor or a simple brush. And you remove plenty of your dust from that. Okay, so there's our basic shape now. We'll keep that chunk of wood. We'll no doubt get some smaller projects out of that one at a later date. All recycled wood, remember, so we've not paid a penny for any of this. And you can see from that it's a nice good thick piece of wood. So I just want to give it a general shape up now. Right, as always for me, I just want to give it a nice general tidy up. Just getting some of these tighter areas there that we couldn't reach before. Then obviously removing all the pencil lines. Remember, you should be able to just about make those out as we routed in. Remember, we routed up to the line, not actually quite on the line. So we're more or less there 90% of the time. It doesn't matter if you go slightly over. It's not the not going to be the end of the project for you. But you can see from that, we've basically got what we're after. So, nice flexi cable. This simply just attaches to the end of the Dremel. And I use engraving bits in mine. They come in different sizes, different shapes. You can just see from there. They're really cheap to purchase. You get a pack of 30 for next to nothing. I like to use one that's got a nice flat bottom on it. And that allows you just to get in there and go around and give it a nice, just a general tidy up. We don't have to go too crazy, remember. We are going to pour resin into this. So the bottom section, the background, that doesn't have to be too fantastic because it will all be covered up. On previous projects, I actually filled this flush with resin. Not this project, sorry. On a previous project, I actually filled it with resin and sanded it all flush. On this one, I want to leave all that wood exposed, so that will be slightly higher than the resin. The resin itself is basically just going to cover the background. So I want to just round these off slightly, just so they're not as sharp. And same with all the edges. So for that, quick mouse sander and a good old sandpaper to give it a general tidy up. We'll do that next before we're on to the next stage. Right, that's enough sanding down for me. You can just about see from there, we've rounded off those edges slightly and all the way around the piece itself. And for hanging purposes, I've just routed out a nice big slit in the back, nearly 3/4 of the depth of that. And that's plenty for hanging purposes. You notice there on the side there, we've darkened that bit down. So I'm going to take a chance on this one. Normally I would put boiled linseed on, but I found myself some wood dye. It's a dark teak. Now I'm just going to basically just cover the full piece with this, and we'll see how it goes. Originally I was going to paint all these lines black, so I'm hoping on this dark teak being black enough, and once it's soaked into the wood, it will look quite dark at this moment in time, as you can just about see from there, but hopefully when it's soaked into the wood and it's nice and dry, it won't be as drastic. And it doesn't matter if I get it on the back piece. Hopefully, as long as you get these side wards are more important, get those side sections done, and hopefully when it's dried in and soaked in and dried in a bit better, it won't look as drastic. We will see when we come back. Slow process, so I'll just continue doing this and come back when we'll spray on some varnish just to seal those side walls, and then we're on to the resin side of things. So we'll come back when it's time to spray on our bit of varnish. Right, that's all nicely dried down. Remember, just a wood dye, dark teak on that one. We took a chance and just put it on, and it's nice and dried, and I'm quite happy with that end result. That certainly saved a lot of painting with the black. Now it's a side draw done, and we even popped some on the back just for the hell of it. That's all nicely dry. I quite like that just as it is, to be honest. But we are going to pop some resin in. Remember, you could paint this just as easy if resin is not your thing. Before the resin does go in, we need to seal these side walls of the routed out area. We've gone in with the router. We basically opened all those pores, we're going to call it, the grain of the wood. Imagine this being made of straws put together. We've cut across those straws. When you put your paint in there or resin, it will, what they call, bleed into the side walls. I don't have a lot of issue with pine, to be honest, but to play safe, you can either purchase wood sealer, and you basically just brush it on, and it soaks into the sides, it dries up, and hopefully that's sealed all the side walls of your routed out bits. I personally myself, I just spray the full piece with some varnish. Any varnish will do, it doesn't have to be too fancy. First reason, like I say, is to seal the walls, and the second is to have a bit of a shine on the wood. So we want to get a nice shine on the front there. We'll put a little bit on the side walls as well. Now you might think, why not just put your resin in and varnish afterwards? I've done that on a little test piece. If you just see this little, this was a Pringles lid, to be honest, bit of leftover resin. Now that's left hand side with a nice shine on. That's the effect we will finish up inside these. Now I sprayed some varnish on afterwards, and you can see how dull that's gone. So if you were to fill this with your resin and then go ahead and spray your varnish on afterwards to get the wood nice and shiny, you could end up with your resin like that. And I've tried it on another sample piece as well, and it was exactly the same effect. Strangely enough, if you sand all that down with sandpaper to make it rough, on a previous project we filled with resin and made it flush with the wood, you can spray your varnish on then. It actually came a little bit of a shine on it. But for nice shiny resin, on what I used anyway, it went dull. So to play safe, we're going to seal it and varnish it all beforehand, and then we're on to the resin side. I'll go outdoors and finish this off. You can basically just see that we just want to cover it all like that. That's going to give a nice shine to our wood and give it more of a finished approach. Remember, we'll get all the sides as well, like so, and that will just give us a better finish once there are 3 or 4 coats on, and hopefully we've sealed inside the wood as well. Right, I'll finish this off and then we'll go and find some resin and we can start filling this one in. Right, that varnish is nicely dried now, and hopefully we've sealed all those sidewalls and we've given our wood a little bit of a shine just to finish the project off with. So it's resin time now. Remember, you could have painted this just as easy and then sanded it down and then painted all your black lines on afterwards. I'm just trying something a little bit different each time. So basically every project is not the same. So we've tried a bit of wood stainer today. Now resin for this little project, I've tried a few, but we're going to go for Vista 1 today. It's a two-part resin obviously. You get your A, your resin, and B, your hardener. And you just mix the two together, 1-to-1 on this, which basically 1 inch of resin in a container and 1 inch of hardener in another container. Just make sure it's mixing by volume. Some of your resins you will mix by weight. So I basically just use these plastic party cups. They're fantastic for mixing in and they're really cheap. So I mark off, I've gone 7i. They do have little markers on the side. So 7 of A for your resin, and because it's a 1-to-1, 7 of B for your hardener. So we basically measure them two together, mix them together, and then we'll add some colour. Now there is pigments, dyes, inks, whatever you fancy out there. I'm just going to use cheap acrylic paints today. So we'll pop a bit of acrylic paint in our mix once we've done it, and basically just start filling this little project in. Get a little cocktail stick just to help it on its way. And once we've filled it all in, we'll skim over the top with a lighter just to release some of those air bubbles. We'll see that as we go along. Okay, I'll mix this off camera because it's just standard boring stuff. And then we'll come back when we're ready to add our colour and start filling this one in. Right, so we've mixed our resin up. I've literally just transferred some into a smaller, another container, should I say. I use these cheap knife and forks for mixing with. They're ideal because you get a nice little lip on the end, and that allows you to use that as a little scoop to get into these smaller areas. So it's just a simple case of putting a little bit into one side, and we'll use the rest of that as we go along for mixing our different colours. I normally have a little side project going as well, just to use any leftovers. And like I said previously, this is acrylic paint, just cheap acrylics. It's actually a red is this one. It might look orange on the picture. And you don't need a lot. If I can just try and get you some on the end of there. That's a nice little starter piece. And you can mix it in with your resin, like so. And if you're not getting the colour you're after, you can simply just add a little bit more. So give that a nice mix round. I'm going to go for a little bit more on that. It's not as dark as I want. I like a nice solid colour. Whoops. There we go. That's another little blob in there. So a nice good mix in. You have a good half an hour or so to work with this, depending on how hot it is and how warm. So don't panic. You're better off mixing small amounts than mixing a full container full. Imagine filling that to the top, then having it sat there. By the time we come to use it, it's going to be getting on a bit. So that's nicely mixed now. I'm happy enough with that. That's just a case of simply filling in the sections that we need. The big areas, we can just pour that straight in. These smaller ones, like I said there, look, you have a little scoop there, and it's possible just to scoop that in there, like so. I like to go along and mark off roughly the ones I want to fill in. So we'll have a little bit in there, this one, do one, bit in there to go, and in there to finish it off. Now it will find its own way eventually, but sometimes it just needs a little bit of help just to see it on its way. For that, good old little cocktail stick, and just feed that along like so until you've filled in what we need to do. And that's basically what we're going to do for the complete project. So I'll continue and fill all this in off camera, and then we'll come back with the lighter at the end just to get rid of those bubbles. We'll come back later when this is nearly full. Okay, that's all nicely filled in. See from that, now all we need to do is just go over the top with a lighter, and that just help remove any of those little air bubbles that are kicking around in your resin. Nice cheap lighter, that's fine. Like that is fine. Or one of those bad boys. Just find what suits you best. And that's all we can do for now. So I'll leave this for a good 24, 48 hours. And when we come back, hopefully this should all be nicely set. Okay, we'll put it to one side now. Get a nice cover it up, because you will find dust and hairs and all sorts landing on it. So we'll put it to one side and we'll come back when it's hopefully nicely cured. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Been a good 24-hour plus later. You can see from that resin's nicely cured. We've got a lovely shine on it. Remember, we just left it as it was. Everything's nice and solid, and that little project is finished. So if you remember, it's 14 inches by 13 inches across, routed out on recycled pine. We use CNC bits for all our lines, then the end milling bit to clear out with. We then put on some dark teak wood dye just to darken that wood down nicely. That's come out really nice. And then we sprayed it with a varnish first just to give that wood a nice shine, plus to seal the side walls of the route out section just to stop the resin from bleeding in, which it didn't do. Everything's nice on this one, no problem with that one whatsoever. And then obviously we popped in our resin mixed with cheap acrylic paint. And that's it. This little project is finished. Give it a go. Just have fun. Don't care what other people think about it. I certainly don't. Nice fun project. Thank you very much for watching.